Hi, my name is Andrew Betts. I'm from the Financial Times. About 3 years ago, the FT went through a dramatic shift in our digital strategy. We had an app in the Apple App Store, and we pulled that app and we made a major investment in HTML5. And the result of that investment was a product called the FT Web App, which is a product that I manage. So 3 years on, it's looking pretty good. We have passed the point at which we have more digital subscribers than print subscribers, a point we passed about 18 months ago. And what's more, as of today, we have the highest number of paid subscribers to the FT in 126 years. So that is something that we're really very proud of, and it's particularly it's a particular achievement given that at the same time we're seeing print circulations, particularly in the UK, dwindling very, very rapidly. For me, the media industry has always been a very enthusiastic adopter of new technology, and the internet is certainly not the first technology that's posed a challenge to the way that our industry works. In fact, the telegraph was probably the first technology to really challenge the way that we work. And neither the telegraph nor film, nor radio, nor TV really had the same impact that the internet has had. So why is that? For me, it's what I like to call the unbundling of the news product. So before the internet, if you wanted to distribute news to a mass audience, you really needed three things. You needed content, curation, and distribution all in a single package. But now, if I go to Twitter and I find a link to an FT story, my friends are doing the curation, and Twitter is doing the distribution, and the FT is really only supplying the original content. And we heard earlier about the value chain and how much value we can derive from our products digitally. And this is part of the problem, I think. It's that by unbundling the product, we find that we no longer have enough value add. So publishers looking for a way of increasing the amount of value and increasing the margin look to digital solutions that recombine these three things into a single indivisible product. And apps seem like a really good way of doing that. You make a single digital product, it's atomic, you sell it through an app store, it has no URLs, it has a single entry point, it has a presence on the home screen, it feels very much like a print product in many ways. And there's a lot of data that would tend to support this is a very good idea. So here's some data from Ender's analysis that shows that, in their words, mobile is taking over the world. And this is very true. In 2013, 4 times as many tablets and smartphones were sold globally as desktops and laptop computers. And that is astonishing. And we're seeing exactly the same effects on ft.com traffic as well. So if I show you traffic to ft.com across a typical week, split by device, you can see a very predictable pattern during the week. People on their way to work are using mobile devices. While they're at work, they're using desktop devices, and on their way home, we see a late afternoon peak in mobile traffic as well. But look at what happens at the weekend. The desktop disappears, and we only see mobile clients, really. So, to me, this means that people, when they have the choice, when they can use the technology that's most comfortable to them, they're using what we are classifying as mobile devices. So we think that we will start to see that trend move back into weekday traffic as well, because employers and companies will recognize that this is a way of working that their employees want, and so they will eventually adopt it. Some additional data gives you additional encouragement to take this route. Reuters' digital report this year shows that people are more prepared to pay for content on mobile devices. Although actually, at the same time, there's a bit of a chink in this argument, because last year this data was far more stark. It was 3% of respondents had paid for content on a computer and 21 on tablet. So this year, the gap is far smaller. And for me, following this strategy, publishing native apps rather than investing in the open web, is about entrenching an old model. And entrenching an old model is never a good way to embrace change. And there are lots of warnings from the past about this. So let's take a very good example, which I really love. Why didn't Sony invent the iPod? Sony had great opportunity to invent the iPod, but they were too concerned about their content, protecting their existing model, that they didn't want to invent the device that Apple came up with. Apple had no such concerns. They didn't have a content business to protect, so they just focused on making a device that had the best possible user experience, and the rest is history. Today, technology companies, particularly those that make search engines, have pervasive technology products that are at the same time all about content, but also don't care about content at all. As content producers, we have to face up to the fact that as far as Google is concerned, our content is like livestock. They really just don't care. They don't have any kind of attachment to it. It is just a commodity. And those technology companies who have so successfully exploited the connecting of users to content rather than the production of content itself have started moving into associated services and building up ecosystems. So today we see three of the most comprehensive ecosystems: Google's, Apple's, and Microsoft's. And together they provide everything that you could possibly need to run your digital life. They all produce a phone or tablet operating system. They all have an email or messaging service. They all have applications that allow you to manage your media and diary and contacts in the cloud. And they all make handset hardware. And the icing on the cake is that they all have identity systems, which you have to use if you want to use any of those services. So if we're not careful, this relationship that the user has with the technology ecosystem far outweighs the relationship they have with a content provider for the content that they consume through that ecosystem. I would love to get to a point where I could use my Apple account to log into my Android device or my Google account to log into my iPhone. Maybe we'll need competition legislation for that, but in the meantime there are things we can do to make the model better. So what we don't want is something like this, where the user has a very strong relationship with the platform and the platform has a weak relationship with the content provider. What we want is something more like this, where users are mobile, users are fickle, they can move between platforms. The platforms are still good, but the ecosystems are weak. The relationship between the user and the content provider is much stronger. So at the FT, we don't have a relationship with a customer through a technology platform. All our relationships with our customers are direct. If you buy an FT subscription using an iPhone, that subscription is equally usable on any other platform that you care to use. So taking this further, we want to extend our reach as much as we can into as many platforms as will have us. Any third-party technology platform that will allow us to have that direct relationship with our user, we should be on that platform. And our content begets more content, content created by our readers, by the community, content that inspires content created by other publishers. And we want to be able to mix up that content across platforms. The platform should not be a barrier to content interacting and breeding. So we are trying to extend our reach as far as possible using our own content in our own channels and third-party content in third-party channels. So to do all of this, we need some technology innovation and we also need some business change. And I want to highlight three key pieces of technology innovation that I would like to see us doing more of over the next year, and a major element of business change that we also need to see in the newsroom. So first of all, payment models. This is one of my favorite stories about payments user experience. So Apple have managed to create a payment system so easy to use that a 5-year-old can accidentally spend over £1,000 on it. How many of you, I wonder, have subscription systems for your publication that a 5-year-old could accidentally use to subscribe to your paper? I would guess not very many. So today, we can do things like this on the web. We don't have to be part of a corporate ecosystem to make this sort of thing work. There's a technology which is currently being standardized called Request Autocomplete. It already exists in Google Chrome, and it's being rolled out to other browsers as I speak. And this enables you to make a transaction with a user that you have no previous relationship with. They are anonymous, they are not signed in, you don't know who they are, and yet you can sell them something with 2 clicks. You don't need to have them fill in a complicated registration process, sign up to anything, or create an account. And it's innovations like this that help us to reduce churn and to reduce abandonment at the checkout process. Even so, this kind of innovation is essentially papering over a problem in the banking system, and credit cards remain fundamentally a very challenging form of payment, rooted in 1970s technology, which is very resistant to change. And companies like Blendle are doing really exciting stuff, trying to force through change on top of that existing banking model. So Blendle have a platform that enables you to purchase content 1 article at a time. So it's the kind of holy grail of content micropayments. But it works by charging up a credit account. So you would pay on a credit card for $10 or $20 of credit, and then you would spend it incrementally on article purchase. So hopefully at some point we can innovate in banking, and we can get around that problem as well. Another thing I want to touch on is responsive design and the explosion in different device form factors. I think most people now recognize that having a desktop and mobile strategy is no longer sufficient. There are far too many devices that straddle the fence, and even more devices that just simply don't seem to fit in any existing category. Let's take the Google Chromebook Pixel, for example, a device that has a high-density screen, like an iPad or an iPhone. It runs a mobile operating system. It has a touch screen, and yet it has a keyboard and a mouse. It's a laptop. So what silo does that fit into? And this year may not be the year of wearables, but although we have one on stage, in fact. But at some point we will get a significant number of these things in the market, and we need to work out what our content strategy is for this. So I want to see more adaptive products, fewer products, higher quality products, more responsive and more adaptive products. And the final technology change I want to see is componentization. Let's take an example of building a house. If I build a house using timber, raw timber, I could build something absolutely beautiful, but it would take me a long time. And if I then wanted to build another one next door, it would take me the same amount of time, maybe slightly less, but it's the same number of steps. But if I were to build a house using rooms instead of raw materials, then I could build a house in a day. And we need to take a similar approach to building web products. The FT now has hundreds of web products, and every time we build a website, it takes longer and it's more complicated than the previous time. We cannot afford to build so many products, and we cannot afford to build them from scratch every time. And when we need to think about concerns like accessibility and responsiveness and legacy browser support and all kinds of things that we may not think about in a narrow-minded approach to getting a product out as quickly as possible, we can only do that through componentization. So at the FT, we've created a new standard called Origami. It's actually a public standard we're working on in the open at origami.ft.com, and it defines the way that our web team create and manage components. It's forwards compatible with a new web technology called Web Components. So when Web Components is finally standardized and available in browsers, we will already have a huge library of web components that we can convert very easily. So I've covered a number of technology changes, and I think that you can only really get value out of that technology change if you also change as a business as well. This year, our editor, Lionel Barber, has started a program of change in the way that we actually run the news cycle at the FT. And one of the key points I'll pick out from his report is this. He said, the 1970s style newspaper publishing process, making incremental changes to multiple editions through the night, is dead. So I would agree with this, and I would go further and say that using a newspaper to tell me the news is actually today a pretty bad idea. If I want to tell you that something has happened, then printing that on paper, sending it to a print plant, printing 500,000 copies of it, distributing it around the world, and eventually delivering it to your door, That sounds like a terrible idea. I should send you a text or an email or a push notification. Today, print is still a fantastic display medium. Paper is still an incredibly good way of communicating information, but it has to be used in the right way. We have to adapt to use print for what print is best for. And if we do that, we can build a sustainable long-term business in both print and digital, because we intend to be around for many years to come. Thank you.